In this module, we're going to discuss Islam. Um, there's a lot of different ways to come at the discussion of Islam. I think now more than ever is it important that we have this discussion, that we look at this religion and try to understand Islam, given that there is a wave of extremism, terrorism in the earth that appears to be growing stronger, violence more frequently. Um, this would be a bad time for people to put their head in the sand and say, I do not want to know about this religion. I don't think ignorance is going to get us anywhere. I think having an understanding of another's religion, especially one that has a violent strain, would be very helpful in the dialogue that could lead towards peace and understanding between the two religions on their extreme ends. And I have to say that because though we see extremism more than we see anything else, we don't hear of a peaceful Islam. There is arguably a grand percentage of Muslims that are not violent. They are peaceful. They do not agree with the violence that takes place. So, but we're going to look at Islam. So we're going to actually look at a selection from the Quran, which is Surah 28, Al-Qasas, which is about Moses and Pharaoh. And in case if you didn't know, the Quran it tells a lot of the same stories in many different ways, different versions, different angles, even outright revisions in a sense of what is found in the New Testament and in the Old Testament. I say revision just in a sense of historical. Islam comes much later, 6,500 years or so after Christianity, and well over 1,000 years later than Judaism. So it comes later in the timeline of Abrahamic religions. But what we will look at is kind of a version of some familiar names and topics that maybe in the Bible Belt you may have heard of Moses. You may know the story of Pharaoh. You may know the story of Egypt and the Exodus. So we're going to look at an Islamic kind of version of some familiar concepts. But we're also going to look at something interesting, and we're going to read a chapter from a really great book that deals with a lot of myths that are associated with science. Now, you probably didn't think I was going to go there, but I did. There's a lot of myths about the tension between science and religion that get perpetuated and disseminated, but they're not really founded on facts and history. So what we're going to look at is the medieval Islamic culture and its relationship with science. There's a belief that science and religion are opposed to each other. Really, when it comes to the discussion of the relationship between science and religion, it boils down to really three categories. You've got outright conflict, which does happen between the two perspectives. Then you also have, on the other far extreme, you have those who would say full-on harmony, which may occur at times on certain issues historically. But then you have the really the moderate view, which is that in the middle somewhere there's a contact, there's a relationship, there is an agreement at times. They brush by each other. Sometimes they're pushing each other forward. Sometimes they're holding each other back. But it's kind of a give and take. And so this myth that religion and science are absolutely opposed, it's hashed out in this really awesome book, Galileo Goes to Jail. And so we're going to read one chapter from there that deals with Islam and its relationship with science during the medieval period. And then we're going to listen to a little selection from a podcast that's from the history of philosophy without any gaps. It's a really great podcast. In fact, this link will take you to that website. Feel free to explore. If philosophy interests you, there's a lot of really awesome free podcasts you can listen to that are created at the hands of scholars who are publishing these sort of surveys of the history of philosophy with major publishers as well. So that particular podcast you listen to is called The Straight Path, Philosophy in the Islamic World. So all that said, pay attention, same sort of thing. Keep in mind opportunities to engage materials for your writings, any discussions that we may have as well. Kind of vary from semester to semester, so just see whatever we discuss here. Hopefully you're keeping up with your discussions as well. All right.